Hello, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
The last time I talked to you was September 2023, because I just looked it up, which is just about a year ago. But a
Yeah,
lot has happened
a lot has changed in that time.
with JVK since then. And the first thing I want to do with you is explain to my listeners the situation with the lineup, because I know Atticus and Kay. It
hmm
seems like you bill yourselves as a three piece, but then you also have that rhythm section. So how does that all work with you guys? Are they in the band or are they just hired musicians?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, it's kind of like with JVK, it's kind of like, I'm the front woman, I'm the front person, and then it's like Atticus and Kay are kind of like my backup almost. So it's kind of like we're a band, but then it's like I'm like the lead and like the front person of that. And they have been so since the time has been like obviously we've had a few lineup changes, but with Atticus and Kay, they've been super committed and just like they do more than the average player, and obviously wanting to give them their flowers and everything and their recognition for that. And then we kind of realized like throughout time, like we've played with so many different drummers and bassists like here and there, and we have some people that are kind of just like we kind of just like call them when we need them, and we're just like, hey, like we have a bunch of shows coming up, like we need you for this. And so it's a bit interchangeable, which kind of gives us like some free like some like leeway to kind of not, because they're like obviously with like scheduling issues and stuff like that, it's kind of just like
Yeah.
they're session players, but then Atticus and Kay are kind of like my backup.
So it's not really a solo project. It's more of a three of you with additional musicians.
Yes, yes,
Did you have the same rhythm section for the whole tour you just went on?
yes, we did.
When I talked to you the first time, you had just changed the lineups because I
Yeah.
was looking at footage of your old lineup. How in the world were you able to do a complete overhaul like that and make it work so good?
It was an interesting process. So we had just like so after Louder Than Life, which was that same time period, September of last year. We had a few different just lineup changes. Schedules weren't working out. Conflicts of interest, all that fun stuff, and all the stuff I love. Not actually, but essentially, I have known. So Kayla had been kind of filling in on the side for when some of my other guitarists at the time weren't available. So then that was like a super easy transition because we were kind of like, okay, all the songs, and you're super committed. Like, let's just like put you in. And then our drummer, it's kind of the same thing with the drummer. Like, he had left the band, and then and then our drummer that we play with now, I've known him personally for like 10 years now. And like all the stuff that I've recorded, he's either played drums on already and has been like recorded at his house. So that was like an easy thing. And so we were like getting ready for this tour that we just did. And I remember we were like, I remember at first he was like, no, like that's way too much time. I can't like take off that much time off of like work, and like I have like other things going on. So I'm like, okay. And then we were like really struggling to find another drummer. So I looked at him and I was like, are you sure you want to say no? Are you sure you don't want to do? And then he was like, I've actually been thinking about it, but I thought you found someone. I was like, no, we really need someone. Then he was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And so that was super easy to find. And Liv was funny too because right after we had
She's the
a
bass
change
player?
with our, yes, Liv's our
Yeah.
bass player.
Okay.
But after we kind of had like a little bit of a change with her, like with our old bass player, she had like found out kind of like through the grapevine we were looking for someone, and she was just like, I'll play. And then so we auditioned her, and she was a perfect fit, like almost immediately.
I'm really excited to talk about the tour, and we will in a minute because I you really pulled it off. I was curious. Okay, so the Hello EP was that was the first version of the band that played on that, and then the
So
new and then who is JVK is Atticus and K.
yes, so the Hello Again EP, that was initially when it was really just me and I didn't have a band yet, and I recorded it with our drummer Ricky. So the majority of it was he played drums and lead guitar, and I did like some bass and rhythm. So we kind of just did that like a
Wow.
two-piece, like a collaborative effort together. And then the Who is JVK EP, it was kind of like uh a mall like kind of just like so many different musicians were on that, and it was kind of just like I was really like going with the flow with that one, where I would kind of just like bring a song, and I was just like, okay, like because there were some points where like, our old drummer was playing bass on some of it, and then like there was some stuff where I was playing like rhythm guitar, and then Ricky was like sometimes just doing like all the different instruments at a time. And Atticus, and Kay were like the three like driving forces of it, just like recording the guitars and everything. And so that was like, but then Body Double was kind of like our first song that we did like as a collaborative effort where like it was really interesting because it was kind of like we like kind of officially made it like a three piece, and we were like, okay, like what are we going for, like kind of what's and we were just like sat down. It was the first time I really like kind of sat down and collaboratively like took a song from start to finish like with a group of people, because normally that's what I do on my own. And so being able to do that with them kind of solidified like a this is who we are, where we stand, which I think is really cool.
I am really impressed how you've been able to juggle all of this and keep like you're like
Thank
in
you.
your early 20s, right?
I'm 21. Yeah.
Okay, and you've done all of this already. So you have someone like me who's been doing this in the music business my whole life. I totally respect what you're doing. Now,
Thank you.
My Own Man, I wanted to talk about that song because I love that
Mhm.
song. It seems to be your most popular song. It is as far as plays go on Spotify too.
Mhm.
Does that resonate live as well as it does when you do the studio version?
Oh, absolutely. So we kind of do like we do like a shorter version of it, like the ending piece we don't always do. We've never done it live before. Because there's just so many moving parts to it. We kind of just like, and I want to make, especially live, where there's so many people that are seeing us for the first time. Like I try to always say, like, if you gain anything from this set, if you remember one song, this is the song I want you to remember. And it's kind of just like a very empowering thing because it came at such a random time in my life where I always try to resonate how I was feeling at that time, like through an audience. And even with like shows where like, I'm super tired and I'm like trying to get myself into it. Like whenever that specific song comes on, just kind of like lights me up and just immediately gets me into everything. So yeah, so that's the one that I always try to like I really like put so much emphasis on that one just because of like the lyrical message behind it.
Yeah, it's a real crossover song too with the rap kind of part at the beginning. I mean, I really dig it, man. I love
Thank
it.
you.
So, this spoiler tour, which isn't over yet because you're going to keep doing dates and calling it the
Yeah, we have
spoiler
four more
tour.
shows left.
Now, I wanted to ask you, you have a manager, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did she help you get this tour together? Because I'm really curious. I've booked tours like this. It's been a while since I did it. It's not
Uh-huh.
easy when
It's
you're
not
a
easy at
band at
all.
this level to book a national tour the way you did. Talk to me about how you did this, because
Yeah,
my listeners
absolutely.
definitely would like to hear this story because it's really impressive.
So it was really interesting. So around the time that you and I last talked, we did Louder Than Life, and we kind of realized like at that specific festival, we were like, all so many of these bands and musicians, they are here to like as a tour stop. And we were kind of like, I remember I was with Atticus and we were just kind of like walking around the festival grounds and we were kind of just like, what are we doing? We're like, why are we not touring? Like, this seems so silly. And so we we sat down together when we got back. It was kind of like around Christmas time we were together and we were kind of just like, okay, like where are we going and when are we doing it? And so we did a smaller one in March. Well, it was really interesting. So we planned out for one in March and one in September. We started booking them both in December. And so the March one, which is about 3 weeks, but like in the very beginning of January, we were like, okay, this is gonna be so cool because we're gonna announce Boston Calling and then we're gonna announce like this tour. It's gonna be great. And then our old manager at the time was like constantly trying to find us like opening slots to begin with. And then I remember there was one day where she's like, oh, like I pitched you guys for this opening slot, like their manager, like this band's manager was on Facebook, like looking for a band to open for like last minute. And then an hour later, she was like, okay, like I got you guys these 5 dates, but it was like Richmond Music Hall and, Union Stage in DC. And so it was these 5 days. So it was kind of like very beginning of January, we announced like Boston Calling, the March tour, and then this like random 5 day tour we were playing
Yeah.
to like 400 people every night for a week, which was so crazy in and of itself. And then, but when we kind of booked like the spoiler tour, it was really interesting because we like sat down and we came up with like a very rough draft of like all the places we want to go for like, like the scene, personal enjoyment, logistically where it makes sense. And then we rewrote that like three times because I remember there was one point where like I was looking at it. So Atticus did the majority of the booking, and me and Sarah just kind of like helped along with that. And there are certain points where like I would relook at the plan and I'd be like, oh, we should change a few things. And he's like, okay, well, like I'm still talking. I need to tell me right now, like what we're changing. And there's one point it was gonna be 6 weeks long. We shortened it to 5 weeks. It was a lot of like logistic planning where that it was like we were looking at the logistics, but then we'd find something new that we would have to fix like halfway through booking everything. And there was a lot of just like up and down and back and forth with that. But I think we really pulled it off really well, especially Atticus. He booked like almost all the shows. I did a handful, Sarah did a handful, and it was just like the three of us just like going at it like every day, just getting it done.
I'm going to give Atticus an A plus because that
Yeah,
was impressive.
I'll make sure to
Because you
tell him.
made it all the way to the West Coast and back. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not easy. How were you able to afford to do this? Are your merch sales and guarantees enough to pay for a tour like this?
It was really interesting because we overall broke even when it comes
Wow,
to like
really?
personal investments. But when it comes to like if it's just like from the band money, we did actually end up making a profit, which was really cool. Because there were some shows where like there's some shows where, we're making like $20 and then there's some like diamonds in the rough where it's like close to 1,000, which we were not expecting at all. So it was a very wide range of like, we have no clue who's going to be here. We have no clue what we're getting paid. We're just here to show up and play a good show. We'll just see what happens. And so
Did,
that
did,
that was really interesting to kind of see like the shows that you just wouldn't expect, like places you wouldn't expect is just kind of like would be like, okay, here's your payout. It's like, whoa. It was like
did,
that's
did
cool.
you do well with merchandising?
Yeah, we did. We did we tried out a few different things. That was a good learning experience where we made like little friendship bracelets and we have our stickers and our shirts and the tour shirts went really well. So yeah, we did good with that.
So what about sleeping arrangements? Did you sleep on a lot of floors?
Honestly, no. I was like, I'm such a stickler with that stuff where it's just like, I'm like, no one's sleeping in the van, no one's sleeping in the car, no one's sleeping on the floor. You know what I mean? Especially where it's like, I would have like the longevity of everyone. So this is so silly, but like, I do everything through Priceline, but I've like, from doing the tours, I've become a Priceline VIP member. So I get these like deals
So
and stuff like that. So it works out in my
you
favor.
booked all the hotels. Atticus booked the
Yeah.
tour, you booked the hotels. That's great.
Thank you.
It blows my mind that you're telling me that even if you said you broke even or only lost a little, it would be impressive because it's not easy, especially, well, I guess it got better for you as time went on because gas prices seem to drop.
Yeah, well, because especially when we hit the South and like the South and then like the mid South, and like when once we started to head towards Texas, like Tennessee to Texas, like gold, perfect gas prices. I was like, I could live with this forever. Then we got to California, and that's when it got really rough. I was like, oh,
I
okay.
missed you guys by a couple of weeks. I was out there October 1st to just the other day, and I know you played LA. My next question, of course, is going to be what cities. Now, I know you guys played Picklesburg because we talked about that, and then you went back. So when you did
Yeah.
something like that and you go back, did you get some fans from the first time come back? Did that happen in any of the markets?
Yeah, honestly, in some of them, I mean, there's specifically the one that comes to mind especially was Richmond, where we played Richmond like three times this year.
That's how you
And
do it.
each
Yep.
time we've had like a few more people come back for each show, and basically like there's a few people that were like, we've seen you every time you've been in Richmond so far. And that was really cool. And there's definitely areas where we know that we've been like we're if we go back, like people would come back. Or another one too was Madison, Wisconsin. We played in Madison in March, and they have a crazy, crazy music scene. That was probably our biggest show. There was like 200 people there. And it was in like a frat house, like housing collective where they've been doing shows since the 70s, and like Bikini Kills played there and stuff like that. And we had like I would say like probably like 20, 30 people like come to see us like in Wisconsin, which I thought was wild in and of itself. So we've definitely had we had some repeaters, which is really cool.
Yeah, Madison's a big college town. I imagine those kind of markets would be good for you. So
Yeah.
Atticus booked you guys in a frat house in Madison?
Yeah, it's funny
Wow.
because it's like we're still in a we do a lot of research on like the scenes before we go, like whatever like information to kind of like able to give to us. So it's for example, it's like we knew we want like it's like looking at certain areas, we're kind of like, okay, like does it make more sense for us to play a venue or like see what their local music scene is like, and especially where if it's like a predominantly like college town, especially
Mhm.
in the Midwest where there's nothing else to do, it really works in our favor. We're like, okay, we're gonna do a few house shows in this area and then build up to a venue and kind of just do it that way. So then people will like come back and remember because I feel like specifically the crowd, like kind of like our target demographic is very into like, they're like music appreciators that will go to the house shows and like want to hear new music. And it always ends up working in our favor that way. So that has been so there's still some areas where we're just like if it's a frat house, like we're gonna go.
So I mean, as you got closer to the West, so I imagine your tour went south and then west. Is that the direct? I should have looked at the tour dates. I did, but
Yeah,
can't remember.
we we went like south, like down to Florida. Then we kind of cut through to Texas. We went like up through like Oklahoma and Kansas and then cut over to the West Coast that way and then went up and kind of like down and around and back.
Very impressive. How
Thank
did
you.
you do on the West Coast?
It was great. My favorites were San Diego and Seattle. Both my first times going there. I love LA. I love LA. The show itself was cool, but San Diego and Seattle were my two favorites. There's a lot of good energy and people just like showing up, having a good time, and really liked our stuff and really resonated to it in a cool way. And those are my favorites from the West Coast.
Were there like record stores or restaurants along the way that you guys went to that you liked?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say, ooh, I'm trying to think. Well, our drummer, it was his first time. So like our drummer that we play with, it was his first time. Like he told us that the farthest he's ever traveled to was Florida, and he saw the entire country in 5 weeks. And so there were certain like little things where we're like, okay, you have to try In and Out and like stuff like that. But it was just like if I'm trying to think of like specific restaurants. No, like it's weird because it's like there's some areas where we're either in for like days at a time, like as like like for like a break, or we're there for literally just like for the show and then we go back.
Yeah, you had some long drives, I'm sure, because the routing
Yeah.
is definitely. You went over to Seattle. I mean, that's incredible. Was it just the five of you?
Yeah, just the five of us.
Wow, so you did all the work, all the load-ins, load-outs, driving,
hmm
everything.
hmm
No road crew yet.
No road crew yet. That's hopefully coming soon because Lord knows we need it.
Well, it gives me a lot of hope for independent bands if a band like you guys can go do that. I really think your drive and enthusiasm is off the chart. So I'm totally
Thank you.
impressed by that. I knew that when I first met you, we started talking like a year ago, I could tell. I just knew. I didn't ask you about Boston. You mentioned Boston Calling, but I didn't get into it. That must have been incredible for you.
Oh my gosh. It was so incredible. The whole process of it, the entire thing was so incredible. It was, and the recognition we got from it too was also so crazy. It like that story is funny because I, me and Atticus went to Nashville to kind of celebrate Louder Than Life and like visit one of our friends for a weekend. And I'm sitting in the airport going home. And then all of a sudden it was just like JVK Boston Calling offer. And I was like,
How
like
did it
freaking out in this
happen?
airport. And he's
Uh,
like, what? I'm like, we're playing Boston Calling. It was crazy.
So
And
how
then
did it happen? Did you have to like apply for that? I mean, I don't know how it works.
no,
How did you get
they
on that
reached out
bill?
to us.
They just reached out to you. Wow.
That's what was so cool about it. Was just like I was just on my laptop, just like doing some work. Then all of a sudden it was just like Boston Calling offer. And it was just like link below to see the offer. And I was just like,
So so you went on probably earlier in the day, right?
we went on around like 5:30. Yeah.
Oh, so the stage that you played, who was the headliner on that stage?
It was key of the day. So we played the local stage. We played the orange stage.
Okay, I've never been to Boston Calling. How many stages are there?
There's four stages. So it's like the red and blue stage, I believe, are like directly next to each other. Then there's like the green stage, and then it's in like the Harvard Athletic Complex. So then it's like the orange stage is like on the tennis court area.
That's fantastic.
It was really cool.
Wow. Well, all of this work is paying off because I think I saw that you guys got nominated for like four New England Music Awards. Four.
Yeah, that
What
was
were the
really cool too.
categories? Do you know?
It was live act of the year, punk rock act of the year, hard rock act of the year, and or hard rock and metal act of the year, then rock act of the year.
Punk and hard rock and metal. Yeah, you cross over quite a bit, so I can see that coming. Now, you must have been equally, you've had some really good things happen in the last
Oh
year.
yeah, this has been
So,
a good
so,
year.
so that did that just blow your mind and come out of nowhere?
Literally, yes. So it was funny because like we didn't get like an email or anything. Like we were driving to Reno because we had like a 5 day off. We had 5 days off, and so we were driving to stay with Atticus's grandparents in Reno from LA, and then we were going to Portland next. And on the drive to Reno, Liv, she goes, "What's an NEMA?" And we were like, "What's the context?" Like, I don't know. And she was, "My friend texted me, congratulations to JVK on the for the NEMAs." And we're like, "Oh, that's the New England Music Awards." And so we look it up, and I was like, "We got four nominations!" Like we were all freaking out. It was so cool.
That's incredible. I saw that and I was extremely happy for you because
Thank you.
I feel like I got in with you guys early on, and now I'm getting to see the whole thing play out. Did I ask you what your favorite? I know you mentioned Madison, but were there other in San Diego and Seattle? Were there any other cities that you really did you play New York City?
We're doing New York City November 1st.
Oh,
We played in New Paltz, which is
yeah.
like a college town a little bit outside the city.
So were there any other
That was a big
places?
show. Say again?
Were there any other places on the tour that you really, besides San Diego and Seattle, that you really liked?
Oh yeah, I loved Jacksonville. That was a really cool show. Um, Iowa, strangely enough, was a really great show. There was like over 100 people there. That was another house venue. I'm trying to think. Oklahoma was a really cool show. It was all like the really random spots, like Wichita, Kansas. That was really cool. Um, and yeah, there's so many great shows, but those were like the standouts for me.
Did people at these shows, at a lot of them, did they know who you were, or were they just random people that you had to win over?
There were random people I had to win over. There was very, very few where someone was like, where people like knew who we were. But everywhere else, it was like kind of like, because I kind of do like this little bit where I'm like, who's heard of us before? And most of the time it's like dead silent. And then it's like, okay, who's a new fan? Because I like kind of like to gauge, like, because they won't lie. There have been some crowds where it's like not everyone's wooing in there, and they'll look at the people. I'll be like, I gotta win you over. I'm like, we have a few more songs left to win you over. And so I kind of like, and then that kind of naturally like the camaraderie of looking at someone and being like, I know what I have to do. It kind of wins them over.
Did Atticus go directly to clubs, or did he book some of these shows through the local bands?
So the shows that I booked were one of them was from like a good friend of mine in Kansas. Like he kind of booked the show and I booked it through him. And then but with Atticus, like, he did a lot of just like cold emailing the venues. And then there were some promoters that we did it through as well, but the lot of the more successful shows like came from the actual venue itself.
Were there any guarantees, or were they all percentage deals?
A lot of it was mostly percentage deals. Yeah,
Kind of a risky thing, but you know what?
very
You did
risky.
it. You did it,
Well,
and
that's
that's
why it was such like a wide scale of how much we were getting paid. Because like, our lowest paying gig was like $20, and then our highest paying was probably closer to like 800, and it was just very unpredictable.
the show that you got paid 800. You don't have to give me too many details unless you want to. Was it a big bill with a lot of bands, or did you guys just
No.
happen to be in the right place at the right time?
It was solely the right place at the right time. It was just like it was a three-band bill. It was a bar, and the people there really liked it. And there's a really good crowd there, probably about like 140, 50 people. And it just it was funny because the woman that we who ran the bar, this is Roadhouse in Athens. The woman who ran the bar, she let us like stay at her place, and she was just like, and then she was super cool, and she was kind of like, okay, like here's your payout, and I'm like, okay, we were splitting this with the other band. She's like, no, this is just for you, and I was like, what?
Athens,
I was like, really?
Athens, Georgia.
Athens, Georgia. I love it. We're definitely going back there
Oh,
too.
that's
That was
another
cool.
big college town. See, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You guys can really translate in the college towns for sure. Wow. So it's like you mentioned Kansas, the West, Georgia. You did good in a lot of Richmond's your favorite market. You've done well all over the country. Is there anything happening with radio?
Yeah, so we got a few, it's like we did a few interviews like on the tour that were radio based, which was really cool. And we got a few like I'm pretty sure we got a few like placements on this like local like college radio, especially like New England, which is really cool. But but yeah, no, so we had a few little radio placements here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you played a WERS show up here once too, didn't you?
Yes, we did two of them, which was really cool. We did one at like the very, very beginning of the band, like probably a few months into when playing shows. And because well, it's funny because my dad loves Wicked Local Wednesday, loves WERS. And he kept messaging me, being like, you have to apply, you have to apply, you have to apply to be an artist, you have to just do it. He's like, come on, just do it. And it was like I was like, oh my God, okay. So I do it, and then we built like I built a really strong relationship with WERS. I absolutely love them, and we got to go on. And then recently, right before Boston Calling, they were like, "Oh, we want to have you back on our station and do another live performance." And that was so. And they're so nice there, and I love them so much.
So your parents are really supportive of what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. How did they feel when you told them that you were going to do this national tour?
They were concerned at first, and not because like so my mom and my dad are so involved when it comes to just like everything that I do, and they love it so much, and they've never told me no. They've kind of just always like pushed me to just like keep going and keep pursuing it, to never really quit. And I remember even when I started JVK after I dropped out of college after one semester, and looked at my mom and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my own band. And she was just like in full support of it. She was just like, that's what you gotta do. It was just obviously a huge risk to drop out of college, start a band, but so far it's been going good. And I remember I remember when I first told my mom, because I told her, I was like, yeah, we're gonna be doing like a few tours this year. We really want to get ourselves out there. And when I told her about this tour, she's like, oh, like how long is it? Like a few weeks. And I was like, a month and a half. And she was like, what? She's like, you didn't tell me it was gonna be this long. She's like, I had no idea. She's like, you're gonna be gone for a month and a half. My dad, the same thing. And he was like, you're driving to California and back. And I was like, essentially, yeah. Like,
Did you personally do a lot of the driving?
oh yeah. It was my car. So we don't even have a van. It was my car. We have a Yakima on the top of it. And so we were really like crammed in there.
Wow. What was the longest drive you remember having?
Oh, there are some, honestly, there are a few long ones. I remember we had to do Portland to Utah in like 2 days. And so we kind of split up by going like Portland to Idaho and then Idaho to Utah. We also did Reno to Portland was very, very long too. That was about like
Oh
12
yeah, it
hours.
is. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that was a
Where did
long
where did
one.
you
We did
play
like
in
it was
Utah?
mostly
No, I was going to
oh, sorry,
ask
go
you
ahead.
where you played in Utah. Was it Salt Lake?
Yeah, we played in Salt Lake.
Did you go to the heavy metal shop?
No, I didn't. That was another area we were kind of just like in and out. We were there for probably like 10 hours.
Yeah,
So I kind of like came in, did the show, went to sleep and left.
I should have told you about some of the record stores before you went on tour, but I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
think of that because
All
it's
good.
always good to visit stores when you go on tour and get to know those people because they can help you. The Heavy Metal Shop's a great record store in Salt Lake City, which is really weird because you wouldn't think an extremely metal heavy store like that would be in Salt Lake, but
Right, right.
it doesn't matter where you are. There's pockets all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. And I knew for Salt Lake too, I kind of didn't realize that like it was a super cool city, but and I was talking to people who were like specifically moving to Salt Lake for the music scene, and I was honestly so surprised by that. Like that seems like such like a hidden gem where it's like I would have never expected people like moving to Utah to pursue music.
Is your band like a partying band, or you guys relatively like straight and you just, because you seem really healthy for someone that just came back from a 6 week tour.
Thank you. I'm personally not the party type. I like to when it's like I know I have no responsibility, but with something like touring, it's like I just stay straight and I go to bed early. And like there are a few times where my band was like, let's go out, and I'm like, you guys can do whatever you want, like I'm going to bed. So I put like I know for all of us, for like all of us, no one's really like a crazy party animal. And a lot of the time too, it's just like you're so tired. It's like I don't really like I'm more power to bands that just like show are able to go crazy after, but like I could never. Like it's
You
not
don't
like
need to. I'm not trying to encourage that. So you seem like the manager within the band. What does Sarah actually do for you guys?
yeah, so Sarah's kind of like in a way, Sarah kind of acts as like my assistant. We're kind of like co-managers because obviously it's like I'm never like my paws are gonna be always all over this. Like I need to have full
I can
control of
tell.
everything. But she she helps like facilitate that. She'll like we have a lot of meetings just about kind of like our next steps, and she helps me like organize my ideas and like sit down and get together and like kind of like because I'm very like spontaneous and just kind of like will go straight for things, and she kind of reels me back and be like, okay, let's look through the logistics of that. So she's good at kind of like keeping me at bay.
It reminds me of the line in Almost Famous. The manager needs a manager. It's true.
Hmm.
You got to have someone to help you organize everything.
For
Um,
sure.
I just want to ask you another thing before I let you go. You've been listening to a lot of new music. I mean, what are you listening to? Did you guys listen to music in the van, in the car? I said almost said the
Oh,
van, but
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We had a lot like we all have such like different music tastes too that all kind of complement each other. I've been listening. Well, it was interesting because there's so much music I feel like that came out during the time. My two favorites right now. I've been listening to a lot of Charlie XCX Brat.
Mhm.
That's been a big one for me. I love that album. That's probably my favorite release of honestly the past few years for me. That was a big one for me. I've been listening to a lot of Fontaine's DC.
Oh
This new
yeah.
yeah, they're super cool. A lot of Oasis, especially with the reunion. A lot of Oasis, a lot of I'm trying to think of like who else. Like those have been the big ones. And we kind of just like and then everyone just kind of has like their own like little personal thing that they listen to too.
Would you have like Spotify or something in the car?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What's next?
We are going to be working on an album. It'll be technically our debut album. And we have a lot of big ideas for that. We're kind of going through a little bit of a genre shift to be adding in more like it's like the same rock music, but more retro elements added to it, which I'm very excited for.
Do you know where you're going to record?
Not 100% sure yet. We're kind of like looking through studios now and reaching out to places, and we're very like in the very, very beginning process of it. So I have a lot of the songs that I know. I have like right now I have like a list of like over 20 songs that I need to go through and choose from. And then the arranging and the writing, the pre-production demos, and then we start recording and get everything together.
But you have a few dates coming up before then.
Yes, I do.
New York, you mentioned. What else?
Yes, so we're playing in Salem at Chagall Park in Halloween, which is going to be a lot of
On
fun in Salem, Mass.
Halloween, in
On
Salem,
Halloween.
Mass. That's a
Mm-hmm.
score. That's a
That's a
score.
score. Booked that one all the way in January. So we were ahead of the curve on that one. We were just like, we need a Halloween show. So we're doing that on Halloween, and then we're playing at the Broadway on November 1st. We're doing we're playing at in Burlington, Vermont. I believe that's a house show on November 9th. And then we're playing at the Lily Pad in Cambridge on November 16th.
That's fantastic. You guys get doing great with the booking. I have to ask you, you're going to get all, you all already have fantastic style. I mean, what's going to happen on Halloween?
I don't know. We have a few little ideas. I think I kind of want to surprise everyone though, because we're still sorting it out. We have a few ideas in mind though.
Yeah, I love your style, by the way. It's
Thank
fantastic. It
you.
seems like your guitar player is starting to get more towards your style. Okay. A couple of
Yeah,
videos I
yeah.
saw, I'm like, wait a second, they're kind of dressing a little more alike now, you know?
Yeah, we've been coordinating better. We've been coordinating
That's
better.
fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me again. I think you're just doing a fantastic job, really.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you reached out. I'll literally anytime. It's been so great talking to you.
cool. Hold on, because I want to tell you something once we get off. Thanks.
Okay, sounds
Bye.
good.